Hey everybody, it's time to take a look at the recently closed Heritage Signature Auction. It closed starting January 9th, 2025 and finished up, and here I am to take a look at some of the lots. Most of the lot, taking a look at all of the lots I covered in the preview and a couple that I didn't, that I just thought were interesting. So let's get started, and we're going to get started with the most exciting lot in the auction. I didn't actually watch the bidding for this live, which was kind of a mistake, but it happened during the day, and I was busy at work, and I couldn't just like step out of a meeting and watch this auction lot. I would have, because it was probably pretty fun. If anybody did watch it and know what the bidding was like, please leave a little description in the comments, because I'd love to know. Because it went from, I think it was at like $560,000 or something like that before the live bidding. So there was some activity, and I wonder if it was in the room. So as I said when I previewed this, I think this is like one of the most perfect examples of a first appearance cover you can find. I think the work by Milgrom is great, and it's just iconic, and it's a great character. I love Black Cat, and yeah, I'm really happy it sold for over $1 million. I think it's just a fantastic result, and it's fun to see pieces that you think are just like really special do well, because we have a lot of pieces that sometimes are disappointing. Or are hyped up by the auction house that are disappointing, that you'd like to see do well just for the trivia of it, right? This one just hit on all cylinders. And as I mentioned, I had a short about this. As I mentioned, it's the second, you can't see the details here, but I just want to show the top. It's the second highest piece of line art, American comic art. So it's Frazetta, that crazy Secret Wars 8 page featuring the 905th appearance of the black costume, which sold for $3.6 million. The Dark Knight Returns cover, which is, deserves every penny it got. But that's a painting. Again, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a painting. More Frazetta, Tintin, Frankenstein, and then more Frazetta, and then it's this. So, line art, it's that crazy, Secret Wars number 8 page, and then it's this at Heritage, which is nutty. And we've had the two of the highest line art American comic art sales from Heritage within the last 6 months. 2 pieces went for right around $1 million, which is crazy. And it's Al Milgrom and Rob Liefeld. It's not one of the usual suspects. It's not McFarlane, it's not John Byrne, it's not Kirby, it's not whoever. So really interesting, really exciting, and it just kind of shows you there's a lot of variability in the original comic art market, right? The previous high for an Al Milgrom page was a cover was I don't know, $30,000 or something on Heritage, and he sells for $1 million because it's the perfect combination of a really well executed piece, an iconic image, a great character. It's Spider-Man, just everything hit on this one. So very cool. And yeah, this is the last time I'll talk about it for now. But I've been enjoying this one. So awesome. Action Comics number 1, CGC Apparent Fine plus 6.5. Not much to say here. $384,000 is a solid price, right in line with what other restored copies in this grade range have sold for recently. So, neither good nor bad. Nice looking book. I'd like it. So I didn't mention this. I can't believe I missed this. So Silver Surfer Galactus in this wild Kirby image, just amazing. And so this sold for $312,000, which I don't even know what book this is. What? It's a graphic novel from Simon and Schuster. I have no idea what this is. I'll have to research it. I probably would love it. But it sold for $312,000. And that's the third highest price paid for a Kirby piece on Heritage, behind the Tales of Suspense 59 Captain America Splash for $630,000. And the Fantastic Four 86 cover for $480. Those numbers, by the way, if you think about what a truly iconic Kirby page would go for, or like a really iconic Kirby cover, some of which exist. They're just squirreled away. Yeah, it really is another level. It's kind of like Kirby is kind of like old masters, right? It's like, oh well, what's Vermeer worth? And they don't sell very often, and when one does, it's like barely attributed or whatever. Like there's questions about it, and it still sells for like $80 million. But you don't see what the girl with the pearl earring would sell for, right? I mean, that was it's like literally priceless. You couldn't put a dollar figure on it, really. Um, and Kirby's like that. A lot of this stuff, the best material is like hidden away, literally hidden away. There's some things I've seen that like I can't even say that they exist. Oh, don't tell anybody this exists. It's like, okay, fine. Um, but just imagine. I mean, you just let your mind run wild, and you'll probably come close to some of the things that are out there, because it's there. The Silver Age Kirby artwork exists, and it would certainly push up against those $1 million prices if you had some of the really big pieces. And really, just take a look at comic art fans, right? Like, look at some of the stuff that's been in collections for 20 years. And there's some iconic work there. So, and the market is just different, right? Like, a lot of this McFarlane stuff is like flipped a bunch of times or whatever. So the market's got a little bit more data on it. We've like extracted maximum value from some of these things. So I don't know, it's a digression. And again, like, I don't know, I can't believe I didn't mention this in the preview, because this page is amazing. This is the second one of these they've sold. Weird Tales number 118, October 1933. CGC VF minus 7.5. This is the second one of these they've sold over the past year for right around $30,000, with this one selling for $31,200. And it remains a crazy image. Love this image. Love the cover. Action Comics number 252, CGC 9.0, off-white white. I asked in the preview, is this a $25,000 book or a $40,000 book? There was some weirdness in the recent results. This blew past. It actually sold for $40,000. The hammer price, and then the buyer's premium blew it past the 40,000 barrier. So it sold for $48,000. That number makes the $50,000 9/2 sale a year ago, like January 11th last year, look absolutely crazy. And whoever got that like has a super bargain on their hands. That's, realistically, I thought that was an $80,000 book. But now you're looking at it and you go, well, maybe it's 90 or 100, right? Like, I don't know. It's Supergirl's great. Again, a great introductory cover. Love it. Black Cat Mystery number 50 file copy. This is a classic cover in action. 55,200 is a very aggressive result. 9.6, so 0.2 higher. Sold for $72,000 in November of 21, which, if you know what was going on at that point, there was a lot of money sloshing around the hobby. So $55,000 for a 9.4 now seems like a very strong price. So there you go, the power of that absolutely gruesome cover. Hero for Hire number 1, CGC 9.8. I've been talking about this book. There's one is for sale there was no TMNT number 1 in this auction, by the way. Maybe there wasn't, I just missed it because I'm tired of talking about it. But I have been talking about Hero for Hire number 1 because one of these sold for $100,000. I just thought that was crazy, because there are a lot of these. It's a great book, but there are a lot of these. And in the preview, I said, we're going to test to see if this book has leveled off at around $50,000. One just sold for $48,000 in November of 2024. It sold for $102,000 in 2021, which, again, I've commented on a few times. It's definitely a $50,000 book. Which I talked about before, is like it has actually gone up. If you just ignore that $102,000 in the middle, it's gone up in a reasonably healthy way, and it's stabilized at around $50,000. It's just that you have this like crazy outlier that makes people like me go scratch their head. Um, this is a funny one. This is a really nice looking book. It sold for $108,000. More Fun Comics 52. Um, it sold for 24,000 less than a 6.0 sold for in October. So I'll show you that book. This is also a very nice looking copy, and I just wonder if it's one of these situations. Um, this isn't Detective 27. It's not Superman #1. It's still a highly coveted book, but it's not the top golden age key. It sells for over $100,000, and I just wonder if like the bidder pool in this kind of high-ish, because this is a golden age book, 6.0 is great and a golden age key. If the people in this level, there were only 3 or 4 people, and 2 of them were aggressive, 1 of them bowed out after winning in October, and the market just suddenly softened, and there wasn't like the bidding war to get this book. I don't know. I mean, it just sometimes books just sell for more or less. I mean, it's happened to me consigning and selling on eBay or whatever more times than I can count that something just didn't sell for what I expected it to. It's the nature of it. So, but both are really nice looking copies. It's a very cool book. So, New Mutants 98 CGC 9.9, $24,000. The last 2 sold for $42,000 in 2021 and $40,250 in 2023. So this is a poor result, especially when you look at the serial numbers. So this is the same book that was purchased for $40,250 in 2023. So $20,000 hammer price, $4,000 buyer's premium, $3,000 seller's commission, whatever it is, $2,400. Yeah, they didn't do very well on this one. They probably thought, I'm going to capitalize on the original art coming up for sale, and it's like it's a good idea. It's nice to take a gamble like that every once in a while, and I applaud them for trying. But unfortunately, this one didn't turn out well. What did turn out well was a Suspense Comics #3. 4.0, CGC 4.0, sold for $156,000, including buyer's premium. This book is the first copy of Suspense Comics #3 in a CGC holder to sell for over $100,000. The 2 previous records are in CBCS holders. So the Mile High Comics, the Mile High Pedigree Edgar Church copy sold in 2017 for $262,000, and previous to that, the Pennsylvania Pedigree copy, CBCS VF Near Mint 9.0, sold for $173,000. Again, both at Heritage, and this one was in 2015. So this book, this 4.0, is the first actual $100,000 Suspense 3 sold by anybody, not just Heritage. Detective Comics #38, CGC VF80, White Pages. I mean, this is a really nice book. Solid result. 7.5 sold for $90,000 at Heritage in June. So this feels strong. I mean, it deserves it. It's a really nice copy, really solid copy, great preservation. And like, look at the white on the cover. It's like actually white. Really nice. So I talked about how ugly this book was and how much I loved it. It sold for a strong price. $63,000 is like very strong for a 1.0. It's especially strong considering this. So this 1.5, which I entirely missed in the preview and I would have talked about, sold for $9,000 more? $9,000 more. It's a half a grade higher. And sold for $9,000 more. But I mean, you can understand why. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but you look at this lot, like on Heritage, it's brittle pages, and there is debris. The book is shedding paper inside the holder. It is an absolute mess. It's a horror show, And it's strangely signed by Stan Lee on the label, which doesn't make the case, which doesn't make any sense anyway. And they won't regrade it because it's got a Stan Lee signature on it. It's like, I'm not quite sure. Stan Lee would sign anything, but why is Stan Lee signing, you know, I mean, he could stop and tell you a story, right? Like he was like he could talk your ear off and sign like 85 things and have the whole audience like in the palm of his hands. But he's like signing a Batman #1. He didn't even have his first comics credit. Of course, he didn't work at DC. He didn't have his first Timely credit until 41. So this book was like had nothing to do with him, and he signs the case. And why are you getting him to sign the case? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it makes sense because it's Stan Lee and just like whatever. He's amazing, but it's also just like very strange. So they didn't want to regrade this, so they've got all this debris inside the book. It just looks ridiculous. And so who would buy this? I mean, I would, and I would regrade it. But it just, I don't know. It's very strange. They talk about how they decided it was against having it regraded. I was like, that looks crazy. I don't know. I don't think the Stan Lee signature added anything. Let's say that. Or it definitely didn't add more than the debris in the holder took away from it. Scoop Comics #2, CGC 1.0, brittle pages, no debris in this one. It's right in line with prices paid for these low-grade books. By the way, so much like Suspense 3, which we eventually found out that there was a church copy, there's a hole in the church listings for Scoop. There's a 1 and a 3, but no #2. So I wonder if, like the Suspense 3, it's out there somewhere and will, resurface at some point. Amazing Spider-Man 238, CGC 9.9. One of 2 9.9s, and the last one in GPA sold for $2,695 in 2004, so it was a while ago. 20 plus years later, this one got $31,200. It's a pretty big result. I think they're going to have to go and look at the Amazing Spider-Man registry to see if anybody had a big bump in points for this one. Green Lantern #59, CGC 9.8, white pages, sold for $30,000. That got exciting really pretty quick. The Pacific Coast copy, for example, which is probably the best copy you could buy, sold for $9,000 in 2023. This one sold for $30,000. I guess it's the power of cinematic Guy Gardner or something. And whoever bought the Pacific Coast copy is a happy camper, because they will get, between now and whenever this movie comes out, if you wanted to sell it, that now would be the time, because that would at least get this amount of money, right? Like, it'd be a very exciting book to see. Green Lantern #87, 9.8, $10,800. And if you look at the disparity in the prices, it's only a couple of years later. But there are 7 9.8s of Green Lantern 59. There are 40 9.8s of this book. So it's kind of like, this is a pretty big deal, because it was Neil Adams in the heat of this like incredibly influential run. People were stacking these books. So Showcase #2, Kings of the Wild, CGC 9.0, sold for $7,800. 101, highest graded. Seems cheap, but it's also like Kings of the Wild. It's not Flash, right? So, but I mean, still, it seems cheap. You're not going to get another one of these. You're never going to get another opportunity. I shouldn't say never, but it's going to be rare to get an opportunity to get a book this nice with this much great, this great preservation from Showcase from 1956. So, I don't know. And again, Showcase 3, Frogmen, CGC 9.2, sold for $8,400. Impossible to find in high grade. But again, it's Frogmen and not Flash. Showcase #15, CGC 9.0, off-white white, $8,400 again. This one's killer. It isn't the highest graded, but it still has, great preservation. And it sold for exactly half the price a 9.2 sold for in 2020, which is, kind of a good. It's in line with what you would expect it to sell for, right? So, but still, I think it's cheap because again, you're just not going to find these early showcases in anything approaching high grade. But Space Ranger, and again, Space Ranger, one of three at 9.0, highest graded, $6,300. Showcase 20 Rip Hunter Time Master CGC 9.4. Again, as I mentioned in the preview, he's in crisis. Like people know who he is. Top copy, one of three. What's interesting is this one sold for half of what another 9.4 sold for last year. Another 9.4 sold for $26,400. So this is probably a bad result, but there's not a lot of results for these books, so it's kind of hard to figure out what's good and what's bad. This is bad. Well, it's not bad. This is another result that's bad. One last showcase. So, $3,840 is a strong price based on the 9.4 value of the book. The last two sold for around $400 to $500. So you expect there's a premium for a 9.6. So whatever. $3,840, great price. And then I hadn't looked at what this book had sold for previously in this grade. In June 22nd, 2023, this book sold for $24,000. That would be like outrageous for the one of 198. Considering you can get a 9.4 for $500, and we just saw another one of the 9.6s sell for $4,000. $24,000 for this is just insane. Even if you're betting, it's an old holder. Even if you're betting that you can get a 0.2 bump by pressing that thing, you're not going to get $24,000. I don't. It's mind-boggling to me how this. I mean, you can see how it happens. Sometimes people put in, I'm going to win at any cost bids. And they just accidentally, two of them do it, and they accidentally win for like some ridiculous amount of money. But it's still just a crazy price. And I should have noticed that in the, I was more thinking about like how much I like this book. It's kind of a neat book. Titans are fun. But yeah, that's a crazy result. The last few copies of this book at Heritage have sold for exactly $7,200. So that's what it's going to cost you to get a 9.0. $7,200. Tales of Suspense 52. First, Black Widow, which is a great book, but $7,200. Tales of Suspense 57, CGC 9.4, $14,400. This book is funny at kind of 9.4, 9.6. They basically sell in the same range. There's no differentiation between the two grades. In the 2020s, 9.6s have sold for $17,400, $20,400, and $12,000. 9.4s have sold for this one $14,400 and $16,800. I actually have no explanation for that, but it's just really weird. It's like there's no difference in the grade. Like those all could just be like 9.5s, and then it would make sense that they sell in like this kind of like $8,000 range. Generally, you would see like if this is a $14,000 book, a 9.6 would be a $25,000 or $30,000 book. You're not seeing that here, and I don't know why. It's a cool book regardless. You go, Hawkeye. Starling Comics 49, CGC 9.0, awesome book, classic cover, Zella, Alex Schomburg, $40,800. And that's the last funny book we're going to look at. Pure funny book. We have a couple of other things to look at. This crazy Teaching with Calvin and Hobbes thing, CGC 9.8. In the description, they're like, oh, these have sold for between $6,000 and $30,000. This one sold for $5,400, so it's like well below their kind of low range estimate. Not that I know anything about this book, but it's like some of the stuff is just so crazy. There's a certain rarity to it. You don't know how big the the actual market is for something like this. And so you'll get like wild disparities in prices. Bernie Wrightson Frankenstein portfolio plate. Very cool. $96,000. Can't be beat. I talked about how much I like this in the preview, and I continue to like it. This is kind of where they sell. Obviously, they go for more if you get one of like the classic ones. You saw one was in the millions of dollar range in the original art kind of league table when I talked about the Black Cat cover. But yeah, you can't walk out without spending about $100,000 for one of these things. So, which is cool because I love Wrights and I love the Frankenstein plates. Okay, so a couple times I've talked about the relative value of Karl Barks paintings and Frazetta paintings in the early 1990s. Like I've looked at an auction catalog and saw these crazy results. And in that, there was a Barks painting that had an estimate of like $150,000. And the Vampirella 1 cover had an estimate of like $50,000, which is just insane. So this painting sold for $264,000. It's not one-to-one. It's not the exact comparison, which actually would skew even further towards Frazetta. But like the top Frazetta lot at Heritage is this painting for $6 million. And as I said, the Vampirella #1 painting would be 15 million. I don't know. It's ridiculous. So yeah, the prices have diverged since the early 90s. Incredible Hulk cover, Dale Keown, sold for $168,000. This is a record price for Keown at Heritage and more than 3 times the previous result, which is great. I just love this image. I love this cover. I love his run. So happy to see a really good result for one of these. So, and really look at that image of the Hulk. I mean, it's just so intense. Awesome. $72,000 for Frank Miller's Amazing Man #12 cover. $72,000 for a cover I didn't even know existed until recently. It's a crazy Batman image though, so you gotta love it. It makes sense that it would sell for this much. And Carrie Kelly, we're winning. And there's probably actually some nostalgia. I didn't mention this. There's probably some nostalgia for Amazing Man as well, right? Like I didn't know the character, but I'm not. I don't know everything. I'm not a fan of everything. So there's people that probably love this book. Miller did. So Frank Miller, Klaus Janson, Daredevil 179 story page 1. I talked about how much I like this. Kind of Eisner bits in it, as you can see, with like the spiked title, which I really like. But 36,000 for a page with just like a minor character, sorry Ben, and the pointy end of one of Elektra's size on it is pretty good. 36 grand. I mean, I really appreciate it for sure. And so if you would have guessed, I wouldn't have guessed. I mean, it's not apples to apples, but I don't think I would have guessed that Daredevil page would have sold for more than this Spider-Man page. I mean, I really liked that Daredevil page, but this Spider-Man page is pretty nuts. So I don't know. Maybe it was like somebody channeling like my personal tastes. Although I love this image. Like I zoomed in on this. It was just like total McFarlane bonkers 1991 mayhem. I mean, you can't ask for much more. Wally Wood, Daredevil #5, pinup illustration, original art, $108,000. This is the third and final time for now I'll talk about this page on the channel. What a great image. $108,000 is a pretty good result. It's pretty high up the value ladder for Wood's Marvel work. His Shock Suspense Stories #6 cover art is, of course, the high value piece by him in the Heritage Archives, at least, selling for $840,000 in 2021. But this is up there, and it's deserved. It's a great image. Todd McFarlane, Incredible Hulk 337 X Factor story page, 16,800. To me, this feels like the McFarlane equivalent of getting one of those like burn Captain America pages, which sell for like 1/10 of what an X-Men page would sell for. McFarlane's Hulk work was really good. This has 2 X-Men on it, and it's really a lot of fun. So I think this is, not a bad price. It's pretty good. Pick this one up. It's half the price of that other Spider-Man page. So, and there you have it. Yeah, like I said, this auction realized just over $10 million. Some really good results. A couple of funny results in there as well. And yeah, so I've got the Comic Link video, which I'm working on. I'm excited. I shared a short about there's a Superman #1 in that, so I'm looking forward to sharing that. And then I will continue looking at Silver Age pedigree, key books, and some other stuff. Like I said, I have some auction catalogs that I'm going to be taking a look at as well. So if you've made it this far, thank you very much. Remember, like and subscribe, share with your friends, and drop some comments about what you thought was interesting in this auction, because there was a lot to discuss. And yeah, thanks. I'll see you in the next one.